What's up guys, Kevin here with TLD, bringing you a review of Dark Souls for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Now first and foremost, this game is hard. Really hard, but in a good way. One thing that anyone who's going to play this game has to be ready for is that you are going to die, and you're going to die a lot. Whether it's because you aggroed too many enemies and got overwhelmed, or you underestimated an opponent, or you're exploring a new area and you hit a trap you didn't know about, or you're just plain stupid and do something like get knocked off of a cliffside, you're just going to die and you're going to have to accept that fact when you play this game. Now the game does do a couple things to help alleviate this suffering. For instance, whenever you die, if you can make it back to the point where you died, you can reclaim all the souls you lost. You're also able to use what are called bonfires, which you can light and act as checkpoints, so that it's not like you get sent back to the very beginning of an area or world like they did back in Demon Souls. You're actually able to have checkpoints where you can safely rest, relax, and even refill health potions. Now, as far as character development goes, players have a good deal of control over how their character grows. You do make a starting choice of one of 10 different classes, but these are more like starting packages rather than restrictive long-term class choices. It's basically just what weapons and armor you start with, as well as where your stat points are allocated. As you keep playing the game, all enemies you kill will drop souls, which basically acts as the main currency for everything. You use it to increase your stats, you use it to buy weapons and armor, you use it to upgrade equipment, you even use it to learn spells. It is how you do basically everything in the game, so that's what you save up, and that's why when you die, you really want to get your body back because you don't want to lose any. Now, players are able to switch out their equipment in all kinds of situations, so you can wear lighter armor if you want to be able to move faster or dodge roll, or heavy armor if you just need to be able to withstand strong attacks. The only option you really have that's permanent is how you grow your stats. Each stat is useful and important in its own way, so there's not really a way you can really waste your points, except if you don't really choose to focus on the right set of them. For instance, strength and dexterity are both used for different weapons, so you really only have to focus on one or the other. Focusing on both can kind of just end up making you not as good with either group of weapons. Really, when it comes down to it, the most important part of how you develop your character is your ability to adapt, and that's really much more about what equipment and spells you bring along. Entire stages or boss fights can be very, very different in terms of difficulty depending on how you prepared you are for a particular situation. Having access to a certain elemental spell, or a certain type of equipment, or even just a special accessory that does something like increase your movement speed in water can make all the difference in how boss fights or levels can be cleared. Now, speaking of boss fights, these are the main key difficult points in the game. However, it does do a good job of giving you a few options to make them a little more manageable. For instance, you are able to offer your services to other players as a summon, so you can work together to take care of that enemy. And in case there are no players available to summon, the game also will occasionally offer special NPCs you can summon to help aid you as well. In some cases, these can make the fights much easier, a lot more manageable, and in a couple select cases, even trivialize them. Of course, one of the caveats to being able to summon players is that you have to be in your human form as opposed to undead. Now, the downside to being human is that while exploring an area, other players can choose to invade and attack you in order to gain your souls and humanity. This adds an interesting PvP element to the game in which players do have to not only defend themselves against enemies in the environment, but also other players that want to take their experience away. Now, one of the things I love most about this game, though, is the flow of the actual gameplay itself. While the game does have a linear main quest for you to complete, it does it in a very non-linear way. You're able to kind of freely explore different areas. Occasionally you kind of have to go one way, but most of the time, if you explore enough, you can find plenty of different alternate routes as well as just interesting little things to discover. You're actually rewarded and benefit from not only exploring these areas, but even taking down special hidden bosses or mini-bosses that can drop special useful items to help customize your character. Another interesting aspect of the game is how the plot is handled. There's very little in the form of narration or cutscenes, only a little bit in the very beginning. However, the plot does develop as you continue on. A lot of times you'll notice that you'll run into different NPCs, you can talk to them, learn a little bit more about the backstory, and as you get farther in the game, things can happen to these NPCs. There are situations where you can run into someone, talk to them, they disappear later, and later on you run into them, find out they died, and then there's some kind of undead enemy you have to kill. It's a very interesting sort of indirect storytelling method rather than just heavily narrating or using cutscenes to tell you what's going on. Now, honestly, I could go on and on and on about all these little different details about why I love this game, but there's just too many little different descriptive moments. I've done the best to kind of give you the overall general sense of why this is a great experience, but honestly, I can't emphasize enough how much I'd really recommend for people to actually just try it out for themselves and see why it's such a great game. If you're into RPGs or even just normal action-adventure games, it's definitely worth picking up and trying. Now, one of the warnings I have to give you, though, is that the game does have a very, very steep learning curve. Part of the biggest challenges of the game is that you really don't know what you're doing for the first 5 or even 10 hours. However, once you get comfortable and really get a better idea of how to play the game, you'll start to enjoy it more and more. It actually has a lot of that sort of old school video game difficulty appeal, where while it's very challenging and will make you rage quit quite a few times, Once you're able to successfully complete different missions and kill bosses, you just feel really awesome about it. Simply put, this game is well worth picking up even at full retail price. And don't let the difficulty scare you because it's one of the best experiences you can have. To be honest, this is some of the most fun I've had playing a game that's come out this year, and I really can't recommend it enough to anyone that enjoys RPGs or action games. That's our review for Dark Souls for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Make sure to check out when I'm going to do my Batman review later this week. Till then, I'm Kevin for TLD. Thanks for watching.